Welcome everyone to the Fix at 6. Tonight I'm going to be going over 3 proven strategies to reduce stress. So I want to put these in an order of what I would say practicality. There's a lot of different strategies to reduce stress, but I want to order these by what we can do, say, in assuming kind of everyone's normal work job, or maybe you're around some other people, all the way to when you have freedom of choice in the sense of you can go work out or do some of these other things, and you can break away from the scenario that you're at. So we're going to start with the easiest one that we can implement, which is breathing. If you've heard me talk before in some of our different outlets or channels, I talk about this one a lot, taking 6 deep breaths. Well, today we're going to talk about a little different one, but I'm going to give a few tips for each of these that I go over. Just because I like everyone, it's going to be a lot more than 3. But I broke them into 3 categories, and breathing is the first one. So there's something that's called a physiological sigh. And ultimately, this happens sometimes naturally when we have too much carbon dioxide. It signals our body to exhale, or we're in a more of a claustrophobic or an uncomfortable scenario. But we can do this as a means of relaxing. And what a physiological sigh is 2 inhales followed by a long, kind of forced, exaggerated exhale. So what it looks like is so we're taking that long first inhale that's helping to fill up the lungs. Our lungs aren't just 2 big bags of air, but they're actually 2 big bags filled with millions of little sacs. They're called alveoli. And these are what really help us transition this air or take it in. So when we do that second exhale, it fully inflates those little sacs. When I say millions, these are huge. If you took them out and laid them out, it would cover more than an entire tennis court. So this will help get that little extra expansion. And then we do that forced, long, drawn out exhale as long as you can. I don't know if you could tell, but when I did it, it was through my nose for the 2 inhales and then out the mouth. Ideally, that's how we do it. If you have something going on for whatever reason, you can't breathe out of your nose or your mouth, it's fine to do all of them through one. It's totally fine. The second thing, outside of the physiological sigh, and this is the one I'm referring to that I say quite a bit, is just taking 6 deep breaths. 6 deep breaths is the minimum amount to actually change our blood pressure and to physiologically take us from a stressed state to a non-stressed state. So a stress state is sympathetic or fight or flight, where parasympathetic or rest and digest is where we want to exist most of the time. And when I said practicality, and maybe in the mid-conversation, you don't want to do the physiological sigh, but if you're in a cubicle job, office job, if you work with a lot of other people, it's going to be a pretty easy one to do. No one's looking. Or if you can go to excuse yourself to the bathroom, your desk, whatever it is. However, if you're still within a confrontation or you're in a meeting, maybe you're around other people, 6 deep breaths, you don't have to do really exaggerated in and out when we do the 6 deep breaths. Just simply breathe in, but try to inhale as long as you can. You can do it nice and slow, and then exhale as long as you can. Personally, a lot of times when I do this one, I find myself after even maybe 3 or 4 breaths, you kind of forget what you were doing and kick back into that automatic breathing. So another technique that can be helpful to kind of keep you on track, keep you on pace for this one, is doing what they call box breathing, where we inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and hold that, pausing for 4 seconds before we take our next breath. I find this one to be a great strategy because you're focusing consistently on the breathing. You're consistently counting that whole time, and it chunks it up where you only really have to have the attention span for 4 seconds for each of the steps. So you can do that technique to also get in the 6 breaths. So those are my 3 tips when it comes to just the breathing aspect. So to recap, you get the physiological sigh, 2 inhales followed by a long forced exhale. Usually that shorter, the second inhale is going to be the shorter one. So fill up almost as much as you can and then try to force in a little bit more, and then the long exhale. 6 deep breaths. As I said, that one can be just slow and slow. You don't have to really exaggerate those. Try to take in air as long as you can. Exhale as long as you can. Doesn't have to be forceful on either side. And then the box breathing. So 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4, pause for 4 before we get to our next inhale going up. So the next one, which I think is one step away from this of being kind of practical for getting away from your job, finding a place to be able to do this, would be meditation. Now, meditation means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For myself personally, I do kind of 2 different types of meditation, but for the interest of this, what I would say is in the morning when I'm trying to just kind of set myself up for the day, I spend 15 to 20 minutes where really my focus is to not think about anything. It's borderline impossible to not have any thoughts come into your mind at all. But the intention is to not really entertain those thoughts. One way I've heard this said that kind of stuck with me was imagine those thoughts as just like being in a balloon almost. And you're not just letting it float away forever, but that is still anchored down. It's like you still hold that string. We're just not going to entertain and reel that in and play with that balloon right at this moment. We don't have to let that thought take you down a different rabbit hole or get you thinking about different things. So if you're new to meditation, I would really recommend utilizing like an app and starting with some guided meditation. There's a really good app called Headspace. There's also a lot of resources on YouTube. You don't have to spend any money. So I would recommend doing some type of guided meditation. The other thing is just being quiet. And the reason I ordered this one second is for most people in your job, you get some type of break. If you're able to go outside, maybe it's only a 15-minute break or you get an hour for your lunch, you can go in your car, put that music on, you can meditate there, or in that little 15-minute amount of time, putting in headphones, putting some music on your phone, and just focusing on being quiet. Similar to the breathing that we just talked about, spending the time breathing nice and slow and not really entertaining thoughts is going to help our body get back to that parasympathetic state, back to that rest and digest, so that we're not in this overly stressed out scenario. The magic of doing this in the morning before we even get stressed is that's going to give you a lot more resilience to deal with these stressful scenarios in your day and more willpower to kind of deal with that, because now you're not already in a stressed state. If you've ever been what I would say short with someone, then you know instantly that they didn't do anything, it wasn't their fault, you're not really the reason that you're as they are not the reason, I should say, that you're angry or upset or frustrated, but it's been a buildup. And typically it's like, I'm sorry, I'm going through a lot today, blah, blah, blah happened, and then this and this and this. When we meditate in the morning, we get ourselves to a very good baseline where we are going to have a lot more tolerance to deal with things that come up through our day. It's also a great reset when we're able to do this midday. So around your lunchtime or something like that, we can feel a lot better. The other one when it comes to breathing is, well, I guess I already said it, but just being quiet and listening. But where we can kind of bridge what we're going to go into this last one, which is a little more physical, is in the meditation. If you're able to just lie flat on the ground and think about tensing your muscles from head and then working your way down to your toes, but tensing, thinking about like clenching your jaw and then letting it go. Thinking about like tightening up your neck, letting it go. Your traps, shrugging and letting go. Thinking about your shoulders, your pecs, and just kind of work your way down. This is great because one, there is a bit of relaxation. We're stressing the muscle, then we're letting it relax. But on the other side of that, we're also thinking about each of those muscles. So whatever stressed you out or made you angry, you're not thinking about that, which is really helpful. One bonus tip that I want to put in here before we transition to the last one is journaling. And I think a lot of people think of this as, keeping a journal under your bed and writing out all this stuff. That's not what I'm recommending. And it doesn't have to necessarily be in a notebook or something that you keep continuously, but just taking a piece of paper, a blank sheet of paper, and writing out why you're upset. Why are you angry? What this does is that it kind of gets it out of our mind, so to speak. We have something called a reticular activating system. And this system, if we're happy, it's going to find other things that make us happy and remind us of other things that make us happy. When you're sad or upset, or if you've ever maybe had a scenario happen that upset you and you feel like you keep going back to it, and you're like working it over in your mind, that system is reminding you of the other parts. It's like, yeah, and she said this. that doesn't help. It doesn't help us get over it. So if you ever talk things out with a friend, or you've heard someone say, I just had to get that off my chest, they're getting it out of their mind because that system is continually reminding them of the different points or aspects that did upset them. Also, in our subconscious mind, it's still there. It's just like on the opposite side, I've talked about this one for sleep, when people have a hard time going to bed because their mind kind of won't shut off. Because ultimately, when we get really busy, your subconscious mind's reminding you, hey, don't forget about this. Don't forget about this. You have that appointment tomorrow. Don't forget to stop here. You need to text that person. Did you get back to that email? When we write these things out, it kind of lets your brain relax because your brain knows, hey, they've got this. They already wrote it down. So we can use this for stress as well. Write down those reasons that you're upset. And a lot of times when you reread it, you're like, is this really what I'm so upset about? I always just try to remember life, it's long, but it's short. And ideally, it's not too short for any of us. But when we are stressed out or in a bad mood, it's a good reminder that, is this how I want to spend my time? There's somebody out there on their deathbed, somebody's there only having a few more days, or they'd give anything to have a few more days and be able to do the things that you can do. If you can walk, talk, write, do a lot of the stuff that you're doing, and ultimately, you're blessed enough to have a job, have a career that you're in, and maybe that's when you're upset, just take a step back. And I think the perspective can be very helpful. The last one that I'm going to talk about is exercise. And this is truthfully probably the best one. I just get frustrated sometimes when this is the only tip people give because it's not practical for everyone. If you're in a board meeting, you get upset, you can't really, excuse me, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go do CrossFit for 30 minutes. It doesn't always work. But when we're able to exercise, it is a really powerful stress reducer. The reason for that is when we're in a stressed out state, fight or flight, like I said, or that rest and digest, where that comes from is a lot more primitive time. Fight or flight was meant for us to get away from a danger or to fight it off. And in either one of those scenarios, we have a pretty big expenditure of energy. And when we do that, that lets our body know that we're safe because you either fought what you're up against and won, or you ran away and lived. But in either one of those scenarios, you're alive and you expended a lot of energy. So your body can now relax and calm down. So exercise is a very strong way to get that reaction to stop. Vigorous exercise, if you find yourself to be a pretty stressed person right off the bat, when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol is pretty high. And there's a reason for that. It helps wake us up. It's supposed to be. But if you get right into your phone and you get right into your emails, and maybe you have a very busy household and you're waking up into kind of a commotion, you're not really letting that hormone come down. It was doing its job to wake you up, but we don't want to continue to push it, push it, push it. So for those people, I recommend some vigorous exercise first thing in the morning. It doesn't have to be a long time, 10, 15 minutes. I would say even 5 minutes if you can really cultivate a heavy sweat. But if you're unable to exercise, or maybe you have some physical ailments or some things that are barring you from it, or just kind of working up to being having the capacity to do more exercise, walking is fine as well to start. I really like to recommend walking. Perhaps you're trying to break a habit. Maybe your decompression when you get home at the end of the night is to pour a cocktail, go to a happy hour or something like that. I think if you can start out with some walking and actually get your body to decompress some, because I will be transparent. I've sat at a lot of happy hours and I've sat a lot of them by myself. And what I hear is, as I'm just eavesdropping on everyone around me, there's a lot of complaining. And that always reminds me of a pretty good life. But when you're sitting there, and what typically happens is kind of the opposite of everything we talked about. People are ruminating about problems that they already have. And then we're creating superficial serotonin, the feel good hormone, by drinking. And it is helping us decompress, helping us relax a little bit. It's kind of a fake relax. So if we can start by even going for a short walk, in the beginning, you can tell yourself, all right, after the walk, then I'll allow myself a cocktail. And I think over time, if you can be consistent with that rule of always doing the walk, you'll be reaching for those other things. I just want to be practical with implementing these. And I don't want people to think that when we give away these tips, we never, utilize any of this or don't need to. So kind of recapping that last one, going from exercise, and again, this can be anywhere, I would say 5 to 30 minutes. There isn't a magic number and a magic exercise because, if you've never run ever before and I tell you just run your fastest for 2 minutes, that's going to be absolutely torturous. Even if you're an extremely trained runner, 2 minutes of your hardest running, that's going to be pretty bad. 2 minutes of as many burpees as you can do, that is not going to be fun. So the amount of time doesn't dictate intensity. But find what works for you. I'm happy to be able to share these tips with everyone today. So hopefully this can help you de-stress, keep you around for more tips to come. If you have any questions, go ahead and email me directly, sam@Fix Medical Group. I'm happy to get back to you. I promise it'll be in less than 48 hours. And I can chat with you, you can figure out what's going on, and I can give you a more direct tip to guide you on your path to being less stressed. We'll see you next time.